So getting set up in Dubsado, this is something that, like I said, I've wanted to do for a long time, to be able to get you guys to a place where you can have a full Dubsado account set up. And so one thing I'm going to preface with this is that this is going to be a 4-week series on just a general setup. So what I set up in this account might not necessarily work for you. I'm going to have pieces in my workflows, and I'm going to have pieces in my setup that you might not need. And we'll talk about that later, about how there's not really a one-size-fits-all account in Dubsado. There's going to be a lot of different variations. So what I set up might not necessarily work exactly for you, but I'm going to be pulling from a lot of different pieces of Dubsado to show you the different features that are possible, and then allow you guys to use those pieces and kind of create your own Dubsado masterpieces inside of your account. So it's just going to be a general setup that I do, but it's going to give you an idea of what's possible. The other thing too as well that I'm going to be doing is giving homework out at the end of each week. The reason I want to do this is because I want you guys to have action steps to go in between now and next Friday and go in and do those things in your account. But with that being said, you don't have to get those things done in your account. I don't want you guys to feel pressured of, I have to get all this done within the next week. This is just so you have just some action steps that you can go back. You can get those set up at your own pace. So don't feel stressed out that you have to get your Dubsado account set up in 4 weeks. You absolutely do not have to. But I do want to give you guys some action steps to take back with you and get those things set up too. So there will be some homework, but it's not required. You're not going to get detention if you don't get it done. And like I said, I'm going to be starting from a basic account. So I'm going from just a plain trial account, and I'm going to start working through that so you can see it go from, the early stages all the way to a full-blown account. So awesome. Well, let's get started here. And the first thing that I want to talk about is what the big picture is of Dubsado. So a lot of times on calls when I'm talking to people from different industries, a lot of people have the question, I don't really know where I'm headed. What am I going for in Dubsado? What's the end goal? What's the big picture? Where should I be headed? So what I want to do is I want to start kind of describing what the big picture is of Dubsado. And a lot of people say, I want to use Dubsado to its maximum capabilities. So let me tell you what the goal of Dubsado is. The goal of Dubsado, or what Dubsado is designed to do, is to get your business process, which is your workflows. And so your workflow, the term workflow is very closely related to automation. People think it's just kind of a click and go. Workflows, the term workflow is actually your business process, whatever that is. So it's to take your business process, what you do with your clients on a normal basis, and bring that into Dubsado, and then be able to confidently manage your clients from within the platform. And to manage your clients, that's going to be on the projects page. Now, I have the term confidently marked there in green because that's a big piece of what we want you guys to be able to do as business owners, is to be able to log into Dubsado and not feel overwhelmed or not sure where to go or what to do. We want you guys to confidently be able to come into the system and be able to manage your clients. So there is a little bit of an internal mentality that we want you guys to also have, besides having a business process that's fluid and can work in the system. So that's the goal. Get your business process into Dubsado by way of a workflow, and then be able to confidently manage your clients inside the system. And that's usually done through the projects page. And we'll get into all of that over the next couple weeks. So the next thing I want to talk about here, 5 keys that I want to give you guys as new Dubsado users. So this is kind of more of a mentality thing that I want you guys to adopt as we get into the system, because coming in with the right headspace and the right mentality will make your Dubsado setup, the whole journey, not as overwhelming. You'll come in with the right attitude and understand how you should have the right frame of mind coming in. So here's 5 keys just to take into consideration before you go in and start, we'll go in and start building everything. Number 1, and this is a huge one, there's more than one right way to use Dubsado. We provide the options. So that's really what I'm going to be doing over these 4 weeks, is show you kind of all the different features that you can include in your process. and you're going to decide what it is that you need for your business. So a lot of people might say, I want to know the way to use Dubsado, but there's really 1,000,001 different ways you can use the system. So by coming in with that mentality, you can say, okay, so I don't have to worry about setting it up the perfect way, because that doesn't exist. There's a lot of different ways that you can use Dubsado, and there's also more than one right way to use Dubsado. Every business works differently, even within the same industry. So myself and my colleagues on the account solutions team, we've literally talked to thousands of people and done thousands of calls, all from different industries, the same industry. And I've talked to, let's say, 2 photographers who have completely different processes. So even within the same industry, every business works a lot differently than the other. I've never seen 2 businesses that are the exact same. So that's one thing to take into consideration. And also, you can kind of think about Dubsado as a blank canvas with multiple brush sizes, colors, different things that you can do with it. So Dubsado is not just a get in, plug it in, and just go. It's a blank canvas. You really can create a lot of different possibilities. And hopefully over these 4 weeks, I'll be able to show you a lot of those possibilities that are capable. And you can take those different pieces and decide how you want to build your Dubsado account up. So that's number 1. Number 2, this doesn't pertain necessarily to today. This will be more for next week. Test things early and often. The more you can go in, set up test projects with yourself and see how your content is going to be working and how it looks to the client, the better it will be once you get to workflows and get to more of that automation and whatnot. So test things early and often. Trial and error in Dubsado is definitely okay. You want to have that experience of understanding how to work with our platform, because it's very big, it's very complex. So number 3, another thing is templates are the easiest way to streamline. So this also pertains to next week as well, but we're going to talk about building templates. And if you can put your content into templates that you can reuse over and over again with different clients, it's going to be easier for you to be able to service more clients. And as your business grows, you'll be able to accommodate more people because you're going to be creating templates that you can work off of. So templates are huge in Dubsado. Number 4, the more complex your process is, the more features and content you'll need to set up. So a lot of people will ask us all the time, how long does it take to get Dubsado set up? How long should I expect to get everything set up? The answer to that is very fluid, because there are some people who don't really have a complicated process. They might just send out a proposal and have a contract get signed and pay an invoice, and that's it. In that case, you wouldn't really have too many things that you need to get set up. Another person could be using our client portals. They might be using task boards. They have 30 canned emails that they need in the system. They have questionnaires and homework that they send to their clients. It really depends on how much you have, like content wise, and also how complex your process is. So it really varies. So there's not really a set answer. So you should never feel like you're behind or that someone else is further ahead of you. Everybody's is so different that there's not really a set time on how long it should take. I'm going to try and boil it down into 4 weeks, but there's not a set time on that. There's a cool point here. Your time commitment for setting up an account will likely be proportionate to the complexity of the process you're after, and also the amount of content that you have too. And that's going to really play a big part next week when we talk about templates, content, getting everything into Dubsado. And number 5, go at your own pace. I can't stress this enough. You should never be in a rush with Dubsado. There should never be a hurry to try and get Dubsado set up. You should take time to learn what Dubsado offers. There's no need to get everything set up in a hurry. It's a big system with a lot of possibilities. So taking the time to learn the system and what it can do is highly recommended. Any of you guys who are in here who have spent time in Dubsado, you can probably attest to this, that there's a lot that's in the system. So it's important to go in, take your time, learn the system, test things out, and get to know the system. And that's going to make your workflow building so much smoother when you understand how the system works. So those are 5 key tips. I really like to start off with the mentality of how should I be coming into Dubsado? It should be relaxed, eager to learn and ready to kind of find out what the different features are. And that way it's going to make your business better. So now let's actually jump into Dubsado. Today, just to preface, it's going to be really light. We're not going to start off with a lot of heavy material. This is just to get you started. We're going to give you some action points, and then we're going to be done for the day. So the first thing is, whenever you're getting into Dubsado, the first thing that we really recommend doing is setting up what we like to call your essential settings. Now, there's a lot of different settings that you can play around with, but setting up your essential settings, the ones that are the most important, that's the first thing that we recommend doing coming into Dubsado. So let's take a look at that. We're going to go over to my Dubsado account. And like I said, as you can see, I'm on a trial here. I have nothing in the system. It's just just kind of a blank trial account. I did set up a little bit of what we're going to talk about today, so that way it just saves some time. But this is just a basic account. I don't have elaborate workflows or anything. So when I'm first coming into the account, and we'll talk about the projects page here in a little bit. Up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the little gear icon. You'll click on that, and that's going to take you to your settings page. Now, over here on the left-hand side, these are all of the different settings that you can play around with and get set up. But what I want to go over today is the essential settings, the ones that really, really matter. You can go through and set other things up in the system and go through every single tab. But for just sake of time, we're going to go over the ones that are the most important. So the first tab that's really important is this first one that pops up here, which is the branding tab. This is going to be where you basically set up what your brand settings are, how your brand is going to look, the address to your brand, phone number, notification email, where you want all of your notification emails to go to. You can put in your logo here, and then up here at the top, your brand color, that's going to be the color that all of your buttons are in the system when you're sending content. So take time and get your brand settings set up here in the branding tab. Very important. The next tab that we'll talk about is the receive money tab. So if we scroll down here, you'll see the receive money section right there. When you click on that, it'll take you to a place where you'll put in what currency you want to use and the country that you're in. But then it'll take you to this page right here where you can set up your payment processor. So with Dubsado, if you're not familiar, Dubsado, you can invoice people through our system and use one of these three payment processors to invoice your clients. So you can send out invoices. There's a pay now button on our invoices that link up to one of these processors that you decide to connect. Just kind of a general thing, Dubsado doesn't take any extra fees off of the top. The only fees that you pay would be through these payment processors. And Stripe and Square have the ability to do credit cards and also ACH payments. PayPal is just credit cards. So you can link up a payment processor there, and that way you'll be able to do your invoicing through Dubsado. So that's a great place to also go. Another quick thing too, if you accept money outside of these three payment processors, so cash, check, Venmo, Cash App, different things like that, there are ways where you can manually apply payments to invoices, so you don't have to go through these three. The only benefit to going through these three is that it automatically gets put onto your transactions list on your invoices once they make a payment. That's really the only difference between that. Everything else would just have to be manually applied to payments. So that's where you'll connect your payment processor. And then right underneath there is the emails tab. This is a tab that I've seen get overlooked a lot, and it's very important. So this emails tab is going to be where you connect your outgoing / incoming email for Dubsado. So currently right now, each brand can have one email that you can put into the brand. Our development team is working on adding it where you can have multiple email addresses in here. But for right now, it's just one email that you can have per brand. So this is going to be where all of your content is being sent from. So whenever you're sending contracts, invoices, different things like that in the system, whatever email you put in here is going to be the email that goes from. And then also the emails that when they're replying to you are coming into. So you'll set that up here. You can either, if you have a Gmail, you'll do sign in with Google. I will say this for those of you who are wondering what the best email to go with is, Google is the best email for how our system works. Using Google Chrome as the browser to do your Dubsado work is the best, and linking up with Gmail is the best. It's the easiest integration that we have. There's not a lot extra that you need to do with it. So if you don't know or not sure what email you want to use, if you can use a Gmail, definitely do that. It will save you so much time, and it's a really quick, easy integration. You just simply sign in. If you're not using Gmail, you'll click this Use SMTP right here, and then that will bring up the ability for you to input a different email provider. So you can go through there. If you have something that's like Bluehost or something that's outside of these other ones, you can click other and put in the information there. So you'll definitely want to get your email set up. If you don't get this set up, any email that you send will come from mail@dubsado.com, and we all know that that will most likely be going into spam. So make sure that you put an email in this section here, so that way when you're doing your sending, it's coming from you as the business owner, and then the likelihood of it actually reaching that client will definitely go up. So in this section here, the three that are the most important is branding, receive money, and emails. We also have the integrations tab where you can link up Zapier and QuickBooks. There's a lot of other ones here where you can customize your client portal and customize your dashboard as far as the color schemes. Those aren't necessarily essential in getting set up, but the ones that I mentioned are very important, and you want to get those set up so that you can use Dubsado the correct way. So go through those. If you see anything in there, you can also get that set up, but those essential brand settings are the most important there. And then the last one is in the calendar section over here. If we click calendar and then go up to the top right-hand corner where you see calendar settings, this is going to be where you can link up an external calendar to bring into Dubsado. So anything that's Dubsado related can also read your external appointments, like dentist appointments, if you're going on vacation, different things like that. So you'll click sync calendar up here at the top, and that's going to bring up another page here where you can actually connect your external calendar. Now, I'm going to try to explain how this works, so hopefully you guys kind of understand how this plays out. So when you're bringing in an external calendar, you can only bring in one calendar, like a iCloud or a Google Calendar. And what happens is once you bring in that calendar, all of your sub calendars that you have underneath there, you can determine which one of those that you want to import, or if you want to leave those alone or export out to. So you can only bring in kind of one umbrella calendar, and then any calendars that are in there as sub calendars, those you can kind of determine, do I want to import this? Do I want to export my events out to this one? So that's going to be where you set up your external calendar in the system. So back to the outline here, those are the four settings that I would say are the most important in the system. You can get the other one set up, that's totally fine, but those four I would say are the most prevalent and the most important. So that would be the first thing, go through and get your essential settings set up. Number two, now we're going to kind of talk about language. So if you're coming over from another business management platform, if you've never used one before, it's kind of like coming into a new country where the language is different, the landscape is different, food's different. And so one thing that's really important to do is when you're coming into Dubsado for the first time and you're getting used to the system, it's important to learn the language. It's important to learn how things are phrased, what things are called. Maybe a quote in another system is called a proposal in Dubsado. Maybe a contact is called a client. So there's a lot of different things that you'll have to learn the language of Dubsado. So this section today, we're going to kind of break down the basic language so you can understand how you can think about things in Dubsado. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the projects page from kind of a macro level. So remember, one of the overall goals of Dubsado is to be able to come to your projects page and be able to manage people efficiently and confidently. So let's talk about the projects page, because that's going to be where you do a lot of your managing, and mostly you're going to be in that section. So if we go to Dubsado, we're going to go to the projects section. Over here on the left-hand side, we'll click on projects and it'll pull up this section here. So Like I said, the projects page is going to be where you manage everyone. Anyone who you're in contact with that you're doing a product for or service for is all going to be in this section here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the term clients. So in Dubsado, the primary person that you're in communication with, the primary contact, that's considered the client. So you can kind of think about client and contact as the same thing. So it's the primary person of contact that you're speaking with during whatever it is that you're doing. If it's coaching, that's going to be the client. If it's photography, that's going to be the client, whoever you're shooting. If you're designing, it's the person that you're going to be doing the designing for. So that's the client in Dubsado. The little blurb that I have here is a client is the primary point of contact for the product or service you are providing. They are the person that you are going to be communicating with the most. So whoever that person is, whatever type of industry you're in, that's going to be what's called a client in the system. Now that you have a client, the client is going to be set up with a project. So let's go over to Dubsado here, and you'll see across the top right here, that is going to be a project. So a client is set up with a project. Now a project, you can kind of think about a project as like a client folder. So I know a lot of people say, well, I don't really do projects, I'm more client-based, and the term projects might throw you off a little bit. But you can think about a project as a client folder for that particular service that you're working on for them. So if you do, let's say, coaching, and you have like a 6-month program, that would be considered a folder. So everything that you do during that 6-month package would be done in that folder. If you do an engagement session, then that would be a folder. So that's going to be where everything is contained for that particular service that you're working on with them. So all of your communication will happen within a project. Sending forms, emails, invoices, contracts, your workflows run in projects, the tasks that you have for certain clients, all of that runs through a project. So you want to make sure, and this is a huge thing that I'll stress, you want to make sure that if you're going to be working with someone on any capacity, you want them to be set up with a project, because that's going to be where everything is kept. All the forms, emails, and all that good stuff. So if we have a project right here, I'm going to click into this project. And this project right here, this is going to be the project dashboard. This is going to be where you do your managing with the client. So you can add your contracts up here. The emails tab here will have all of your email communication. The invoices that you have for that particular service are all going to be here. Forms that you want to send out. If you have appointments with your clients, those are kept inside of the project. Workflows, all of that is going to be contained inside of the project. So it's important to kind of think about how you want to break up your folders for your business. That could be done a lot of different ways. And this is where the blank canvas analogy kind of comes into play. You could decide that you want to have, if you're maybe, let's say you're in accounting or something like that, you could have a new folder for every quarter that you work with them or every year. Coaching is another great example. If you want to do whatever type of 3-month package, or if you do a year program or a mastermind, you can make that a project or a folder. Engagement session, and then you do an actual wedding session, you could make those 2 separate projects. Maternity session, make that a separate project. So the biggest thing, and this is going to be part of your homework, is to decide how you guys want to break up your projects, how you're going to decide this is going to be when a new project is needed. So that's what the project is it's really like a client folder. So now the next thing is understanding leads and jobs and where that comes into play. So you have a client that's set up with a project and a folder that's going to be where you do your communicating with. And then what you can do is you can take that folder and you can give it a classification, whether it's a lead project or a job project. So if we go back to Dubsado here, I have my project, and then up across the top, you see the lead section, and then you have the job section. Each project can have a certain status assigned to it. The status, it's the classification of where is this client at in my overall flow. So you have your workflow where someone comes into Dubsado, You talk with them, you kind of send them out your material, what things cost. Then they decide they want to work with you, and then you onboard them, and then you do the actual work for them, and then you offboard them. So that flow that you have, you can decide if these are more considered leads, are they in that area, or they transitioned into a job project. So the status is going to be over here on the right-hand side of the project, and you can update the status of the project at any time. Now, the reason it says no status is because we haven't created sub-statuses inside of leads and jobs, but we'll get to that later in this series. We won't get into all of that currently. So the most important thing to understand is that the leads over here, this is going to be where you're going to keep all of your projects where the client has not booked with you yet. So you're still doing like a consultation call. You've just sent out maybe your quote or your proposal, but they haven't actually got on board yet. They haven't booked with you yet. And then they can eventually transition into a booked job. That might mean that they've signed a contract, they've paid an invoice, whatever you would determine this is what a job is, that's going to be where you're going to keep all of those people. So you can keep those separate in our system. That's why you're going to do all of your managing on this page, because it's going to be all your leads, people who you just have, communication with, and then people who are also booked with you as well. So that's kind of a macro level breakdown of the projects page. You have a client that's set up with a project or a folder, and then you can determine, is that more in the lead status, is in the lead phase, or have they transitioned into a job? And you can split those up at any time. And we'll talk about adding more statuses and automation and all of that good stuff later, but it helps to have a foundation of this is how the projects page works as a whole. So we have that there. So now we're kind of learning the language, clients, projects, leads, and jobs, and the differences between the two. Quick blurb here. Each project or folder can either be classified as a lead or transition into a job. Lead projects can turn into job projects, and any project in the lead area means the client hasn't booked with you, and any project in the job area means that the client has booked with you. So that's just how that works there. So now, the last thing here we're going to talk about today, and then we'll get into the homework, is now once you understand the projects page, now what do I do from this point? The next thing we're going to talk about is something that gets overlooked all of the time. And so I can't wait to share this with you guys, because I see a lot of people doing a lot of other things in the system, but it's something that gets overlooked a lot. So this is a very, very important part of getting started in Dubsado. And that is understanding how you want your lead capture to work and how you want people to come into the system. So remember, the goal of Dubsado is to get your workflows into Dubsado and then be able to comfortably manage your clients in the projects page. So if the goal is to get your workflow into the system, then it's best to start at the beginning of your workflow. Where's your workflow going to begin? And it starts with the lead capture form. So let's talk about this. The lead capture form in Dubsado has two main functionalities. One is to create them in Dubsado to create new lead projects. And the second thing that the lead capture form is responsible for is to start your workflows. So it's easy to see that if our goal is to get the business process into Dubsado, that you have to start at the beginning of your business process. And that's going to be the lead capture form. So let's go into Dubsado here. And if you're brand new to Dubsado and you're just kind of getting started, you are going to be spending a lot of time in the template section here. The template section, like I mentioned with those 5 keys, building templates that you can send out to your clients is going to save you massive amounts of time. So building your content here in the template section is going to give you a good head start that when you start getting clients into the system, you'll be able to send them things that you've already created and you can send those out to them. So what we're going to look at first here is the form section. This is probably the most common section that we have in the templates area. This is going to be where you keep all of your form templates, all of your master templates, your contracts, sub-agreements, questionnaires, proposals. We're going to deep dive into all of those next week, getting into the content piece of Dubsado. But the one that I want to start with, so you kind of understand where you're headed, is the lead capture form over here on the right-hand side. the lead capture form, and I have one created, so I didn't want to create it on the actual webinar to take up more time because I know we have a lot to get through. But the lead form here, this is going to be where you create your contact form that you can put on your website to get people into Dubsado. So this form should resemble whatever type of intake form or form that you send to somebody as kind of a qualifier to get their contact information. You'll want to create that as a lead capture form because this is going to go on your website or it's going to go on your social media. This is going to be what you send to people as kind of the first point of contact to get into the system. So with the lead capture form, and we'll kind of talk about this a little bit, is this is going to be what you can embed on your website or send out to somebody. So with the lead capture form, there are two different ways that you can share this form with people. The first way, and we'll click up here where it says share in the top right-hand corner. We'll click on that. And that's going to give us two different ways to share this. The first way is to embed it on your website. So what you can do is you can take this code here, copy and paste that into your web builder, and then that will embed the form on your website. So anyone who visits that, once they fill this form out, what it does is it creates a new lead project in your project section. So anytime someone fills out a lead capture, you'll see a new lead generate in that section there. That's what gets them into Dubsado, gets them set up with that folder, and then you can start communicating with them. So you can either embed the form, or the other option is you can use this direct link to send to anybody. Now, a common question we have is, can you change this link? In the settings menu, there is a way that you can change your domain name, so it's coming from your domain name. And then you can also turn this into like a bit.ly link that you can send to people. So there are different ways to do that. But with this form, since there's two different ways to share it, you kind of have to think about, how am I going to share this form? You could put this direct link on your Instagram. You could put it on your Facebook, on LinkedIn. You could text it to somebody. I've also seen people take this direct link and then bookmark it on their own computer. And I'll just do that actually here. I'm just going to copy this direct link and open this up in a new window. And when I open it up in a new window, it actually just opens up this form here. So I could fill this out if I'm on the phone with somebody, if I get a cold email where someone says, hey, I heard about you, here's my name, what I'm interested in, I would like to do this. You could just open up this form and fill it out like an internal lead capture form. So with the lead capture, one of the biggest things that I hear is, well, I can't use a lead capture because I don't have a website. But with these ways of sharing, you can literally do a lot of different methods on sharing this form with different people. So with this form, how you build forms in Dubsado, we'll get more into this later next week, is you'll take these different elements on the right-hand side here, and you can click and drag them onto the form. So you'll build your Dubsado forms by using these elements with check boxes, short answers, drop downs, all of that good stuff. So I have my contact form here, and it has, just basic contact information, getting that info from them. So the first thing that a lead capture does, like we said, is once they fill this out on the projects page, you're going to see a new lead get put in right here. So that will automatically create them in the system. That's the first piece of functionality that the lead capture form does. The other thing that the lead capture form does, like we said, is it starts workflows. So a lot of people that I've seen, when they first get into Dubsado, they go straight to workflow because automation is sexy and everyone wants to get that automation and workflows in. But if you don't understand how your workflows begin and where they're going to be coming from and how they start, you may go in and build a workflow and then realize you can do these different methods I'm going to show you. And then you have to kind of start from scratch or you have to rebuild it. So it's important to know how workflows start in Dubsado. You can either manually apply a workflow in a project. You can always manually go in, click on the workflows tab and start a workflow. But for that automation, there's two ways that you can start a workflow in Dubsado. The first way is in the settings menu up at the top. So there's the form tab. That's where you build the form. And then there's the settings tab over here. Right up at the top, you'll see where it says default workflow. this is going to be where you can add in a workflow that would be for everybody who fills out this form. So if you're in the type of business where you want someone to fill out this lead capture form and the exact same process gets added to everybody's project, then you would add in a default workflow. That means everyone gets the exact same workflow. There's no variation at all. So there's that option for a workflow. The other option for a workflow is you can use what's called the workflow element. And that's over here. This is our element chart is what we call it. And you can take the workflow element, it's the little circle icon there, and you can actually ask a question on the form. And then based off of their answer, you can have a different workflow start. So for example, I already have one on this form here, and it says, what service are you interested in? So if I click on this here, what I can do is I can offer different options on my form, and depending on what they click on, if they say, I'm interested in headshots, they would get this workflow. If I'm interested in weddings, they would get this workflow. Another example would be like one-on-one coaching would be an option. And then like group coaching could be another option. Maybe you have a mastermind that you want to do. You could add that in there. So what this does is, if you're planning on only having one contact form and you want them to come to that form and then decide what type of service they're interested in or what lane they're going to be in, then you would set this option up here. So with this, there's different ways that you can set up your workflows. So it's important to know, how are your workflows even going to begin? Because what we're going to eventually do is we're going to look at these different options and we would say, okay, they're going to come to the lead capture form, they click on one-on-one coaching, or they click on engagement session, whatever it is. And when they click on that, that workflow, whatever is in that workflow, the emails, forms, contracts, tasks, everything that's in that workflow would then get added into their project. So before you go in and build workflows and start working on automation, the most important thing is to understand, how are my workflows even going to start? Where am I going to have different lead capture forms? Do I have social media sites that I want to have individual lead capture forms on, specific ones for LinkedIn that ask specific information? Do I just want to have one lead capture that has this workflow element? Or do I want to have multiple lead captures that only have one workflow that starts from each of them? That is so important to do, because it's essentially going to build a wireframe for how you're going to do your workflows. It kind of sets the tone for what you're going to build, and it gives you that game plan. So if we go back to the outline here, we're about wrapped up for today. So the lead capture form, 2 responsibilities: 1, to create those new leads, and 2 is to really game plan your workflows. You can either do a default workflow, or you could do a workflow element. You kind of have to decide what works best for your business. This is where the blank canvas comes into play as well, again, because somebody might have a photography company and someone else might have a photography company, but this person might not want to use Facebook as a way to get leads. They don't really have a Facebook page, but this one does. So this one would create a Facebook lead capture, or they might have a specific one for for Facebook. So you really have to look at what you have set up as a business owner and what's going to work best for you. So now let's get into the homework. This is kind of fun. I like being a teacher that assigns homework. I'm going to have to do this more often. So this is going to be your homework assignment moving forward. And like I said earlier, you do not have to get these done by next week. There is not a time limit on this. You could sit with this for 3 weeks and write everything out and decide what you want to do, and then come back later and then rewatch next week's session. So don't feel rushed to get this done. If you are a go-getter and you say, I want to get this set up in the time frame for these 4 weeks, then go in and you can get these things set up here. But I'll kind of talk you through what the homework's going to be. First thing, really easy: set up your essential settings. Put in your payment processor, your emails, your calendar, do your branding, put in your logo. That should take, 10 minutes. So that's not a really big one. The second thing, decide how you want to structure your projects. This is a big thing. So kind of what I was saying earlier, depending on what industry you're in or how your business works, think about what would constitute a project. Do I want it to be for each session they get a new project? Do I want it to be where, if, like I said, if you're like in the accounting realm and you say every single quarter, I want to make a new project for them to kind of refresh? Do I want to do it every year? If you do certain packages, do you want your folder to be based off of when they do a new package with you and they renew? So sit down and kind of think about what is going to constitute a new project. How am I going to look at projects? What's going to be contained within each project? Another thing that also gets overlooked too as well is the naming convention. So if we go back to the projects page, how you title your projects, the best thing you can do is to come up with a structure for how you're going to title all of your projects. So you don't want to have different formats for different things. So if you have engagement sessions that you do, you don't want one to just say engagement and the other one to say engagement session and put the date in, and then another one that just has the date. You want to develop a formula for how you're going to title all of your projects. That's going to help you for filtering, looking up projects and all of that. So kind of think about how you want to title them. The title of the project is normally going to be the service that you're providing, whatever it is that you're doing for the client. So if you're in the wedding industry, it might be the two last names of the couple, and then, put the date in, and you can kind of decide how you want to structure it. So that's the second piece of homework, is to think how you want to structure your projects. What's going to constitute a new project, and how do I want to name my projects? The third thing is to write out where your leads are coming from. Do you have leads that come from Facebook a lot? Instagram? Where are the places where leads come in? Write out all of those different ways. Do you have a website? If you don't, that's totally fine. How else are you going to be using it? Are you going to text the link to somebody? Do you need an internal lead capture form because you get a lot of phone calls? Think about where your leads are going to be coming from. And then what I want you to do, and I guess we could kind of flip these two around, but I want you to build those lead capture forms. So however many you need, you might only need one, you might have 5. Go through and build out those lead capture forms. And those are going to be for the different places that you're going to have people be coming in from. Decide on the workflow options that will begin from each. So kind of going back, you could have one lead capture that has 4 different workflows that start. You could have 4 lead capture forms where one starts from each one. So understanding where your workflow options are going to be coming from. Now, you don't need to write out your workflows or build your workflows. It's not that serious. It's just understanding, how am I going to start my workflows? Just write out the different options for what's going to start from that point. So those are the 5 things I want you guys to do. It's a lot of just writing things out and planning. The best thing you can do in Dubsado is plan out your attack before going in and doing things. When you have a good plan, then once we get to the content that we're going to talk about next week, where we're going to talk about contracts and emails, payment schedules and the scheduler and all of that, it's going to make sense, and you're going to know what you're building. You're going to have a blueprint on what it is you need to build in this system, and you won't just be building things randomly. There'll be a reason why you're building them.